Y'all know what's going on. It's time for another episode of Doing Time with Joe. I'm your host, Joe Baker. Welcome to episode 5 of Fooled by the Game. In episode 4, Phil is arrested, so he hands his operation off to his cousin Reggie and his friends. They quickly learn that being the top dog isn't always a good thing. In the dope game, you have to be willing to share the wealth, especially if you are new to the game. Welcome to episode 5 of Fooled by the Game. Everybody in Phil's organization that got arrested did the same thing that Phil did. They handpicked somebody to take over the operation for them. When you've been in the game as long as Phil had, you have to plan for the day that you get caught. Most people can't, won't, or don't want to look that far down the road. Phil is smarter than that, so he was ready. There is no retirement plan in the dope game, y'all. Not at all. Now, with us on the outside, the operation would continue to grow. 1 year later, we had expanded to the operation across 2 states. By the time we turned 21, we were millionaires. Phil had to plead guilty to get his mother and grandmother out of jail. In exchange, he was sentenced to life in the feds. Kim and I were expecting our first baby. It's a girl. I was so excited that I took some time away from the game to spend more time with her. All day she had me running back and forth to the store to get her food to eat. Even though the refrigerator was full of stuff, she wanted something else. It was always something different, and I loved it. I loved every minute of it. Life was good. 3 months later, she went into labor. On the way to the hospital, I texted her parents, my parents, and the crew to let them know it was time. When we got there, they took Kim in the back. I had to fill out some papers. They wanted to know what type of insurance we had. I didn't know any of that stuff. Kim took care of all of that. All I did was make the money. The receptionist, she recognized me. She looked at me and she said, "Aren't you Craig Sullivan?" I looked at her and said, "Who are you?" She said, "My name is Kathy. We were in high school together." I took a hard look at her, but she didn't look familiar to me, but I played along. I said, "Yeah, I remember you." She smiled and asked me if she could help. I told her my girlfriend was in the back about to give birth to our little daughter. I said, "Can you help me? Can you help me get back there?" She looked at the nurse, looked back at me, and said, "Come on, we'll fill out these papers later." When I got there, she was already pushing. I stood by her side, holding her hand, while the doctors told her, "Push, push. She's almost here. Push, push." Kim screamed and pushed as hard as she could, and then we heard it, our baby's voice. She was screaming as loud as she could, like she was mad about something. But we were so happy. We all were so happy that we started crying. I looked at Kim and she was crying. When the doctor handed Kim our daughter, she kissed her and looked at me. I leaned down and I kissed her and Kim, and I said, "You did it, baby. She's beautiful. She looks just like you." All of a sudden, Kim collapsed. The nurses grabbed the baby, and I heard somebody yell out, "Her blood pressure is dropping." They took our daughter out of the room and told me to stand back. I could see what was happening, but I heard them say that she was bleeding internally, and they had to stop the bleeding, or they were going to lose her. Nurse Kathy saw me standing in the corner. She came over to me and said, "You should go. Go outside. We got this." I couldn't. I couldn't leave her. There's no way I was leaving her. That's when I heard the doctor say, "Charge the paddles, charge the paddles." He was yelling. "Clear." And he hit her. Boom. He did it 3 times. No response. The doctor looked at me, looked at the nurses. He said, "She's gone." I collapsed. I collapsed in the corner. I couldn't believe it. I couldn't believe it. I stayed in the room with her for hours until the nurses came in to tell me that they needed to clean her up and clean the room. I couldn't believe it. She was gone. The love of my life, the mother of our daughter, was gone. When I walked out of the delivery room, my parents, her parents, and my crew were waiting for me. They gathered around and we all cried together. "Where's our baby? Where's our daughter?" My mom grabbed me and said, "She's in the maternity ward." I hurried down to the maternity ward. When I got there, I looked through the glass, and even though all the babies were wrapped up real tight and you could only see their faces, I recognized her immediately. She looked just like her mother. Standing there, staring at her, I knew that things were going to be different. No one knew, but Kim and I had talked about leaving, getting out of town, leaving everything behind after our daughter was born, because she didn't want her to be around the dope lifestyle, and I didn't either. I just wanted to get away now. Standing at the window to honor her mother and to walk away from the dope game. I just didn't know how to tell my crew. It was rough because I had to make funeral preparations. Her parents, they were heartbroken. They welcomed their granddaughter, but they lost their daughter, all in the same night. I couldn't stop thinking that somehow I was to blame for her death. Could it be that the universe was punishing me for what I was doing to the community? I didn't like what I was doing, but I didn't want to be like my parents. Work hard all my life and have nothing. It made sense at the time to get in the dope game, but now it doesn't seem right. It's not about money. That's what I'm learning. It has and always will be about family. Yeah, money helps, but it doesn't protect from tragedy, heartache, and pain. I would give every cent that I've earned if I could have Kim back with us. We had a small funeral. That's what she would have wanted. I didn't see the point in taking Kimmy. When she got older, I would take her to the gravesite and tell her how amazing her mother was. For now, it's my job to protect her. A couple of months after the funeral, it was time to tell the crew what my plans were. I invited them to the house. It was a somber time because I wasn't just walking away. I was leaving the country. I wanted away from everything and everybody. I had saved up enough money, plus I had investments. A lot of the ideas Larry talked about, I checked out for myself. I got me a financial advisor 3 years ago. Since then, I had been putting away half of whatever I was making. It was all in the markets, stocks, bonds. I had a lot of money. I had more money than I could ever dream of. This money was for me and Kimmy now. Plus, I had gotten my GED, and with Kim pushing me, I had enrolled in college online. Nobody knew this. Nobody knew this. After we talked, They all wished me well, and that was that. I was out. This concludes episode 5 of Fooled by the Game. Thank you for listening to episode 5 of Fooled by the Game. In this episode, Craig realized that the cost of his lifestyle was too much for him to bear. He had lost the love of his life in exchange for a second chance. That's real stuff, y'all. When we are in the streets raising all kinds of hell, we don't think about how it's going to affect someone's life or the life of someone that we love. The people that have family members on drugs, they worry every day that they will get a call from the police or a knock at the door or somebody letting them know through social media that their loved one has died from the poison that drug dealers sell in the streets. The pain that is caused by that action, it comes back on the drug dealer. It came back on Craig. He struggled with the idea that somehow that he was to blame, that because of his bad deeds and the things that he was doing out in the streets, somehow cost the life of his loved one, the mother of his kids. It's hard because karma is real. We don't get to decide when it comes. We don't get to decide how it comes. But karma is real. Things happen in our lives that make us feel what it is that we've put out there in the universe. And maybe that was the only way that Craig could feel the pain and destruction that he was causing to other families by losing the love of his life. Who knows? I don't. But what I will say is that I don't think it's worth it. What you can do is live a righteous life. Do the best that you can in life. And do as much as you can to not create bad karma, cause pain and destruction to others by living a righteous life, y'all. This has been another episode of Doing Time with Joe. I'm your host, Joe Baker, and I say peace, y'all.